cedis to play. You sit back, relax, and watch that 1,000 Ghana cedis go straight onto your mobile device. And of course, this morning we do this in tandem with you. Do keep your thoughts, your comments, your questions, even your suggestions coming on our socials. We're streaming this morning on X, on Facebook, and also on YouTube. Get your thoughts coming through. I'll read out as many of your messages as possible. So keep them coming. This morning, I've got in studio two gentlemen who will be helping me dissect these issues. We'll also add some others into the conversation as and when we progress. But this morning, let me say a warm welcome to Hamza Suhini Saibu, private legal practitioner, also a member of the NDC's comms team. Hamza, good morning. How are we doing?
Good morning, Helen. Well, I'm doing great. By His grace. Hope you are great too.
I'm doing all right. A lot happening on the global front. Every time you put down your phone and pick it back up, something new is happening. So I hope we can get into that as well this morning. We know that we live in a global village these days and we're interconnected in so many ways. So it'll be useful for us to actually break down what some of the geopolitical tensions mean for us here on home soil. Although this morning we're hearing some better news than we have heard in the last few days. So at least I know Edu G is having a more calm morning. He was here yesterday. We talked about fuel pricing and what could potentially happen if these things are not de-escalated. But thank you for joining us again this morning. Also in the studio, Nanaya Osapon, political aid to Alan Chemating. No Yellow Bible in sight. I hope you have it on your phone.
It is on my phone. I've always carried it. And as I told you, the word should be in your mind and in your heart. And once you study, it should be in your soul. Ghana first and nothing more. Yes, it's been a beautiful weekend. And I monitored the show yesterday.
Okay.
And I saw the fear in your eyes.
The fear in my eyes?
When you were discussing the effects on the fuel and other...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, we've been enjoying some little reprieve here and there, at least as far as fuel cost is concerned. We were looking forward to inflation going down. So when you hear about some of these things happening on the globe, it does cause you to be alarmed.
I think that even this morning, fuel prices, the world market prices has gone down. I think as a result of last night's ceasefire that was called. I just hope that indeed it would reflect in the coming days in the world market. But I think the prices are coming down. They would no longer have to block the
Strait of Hormuz.
And I think God has been kind to us, and that is what where we are. I also think that it's a call for us to be able to put in measures ahead of time as against some of these occurrences, because these are things that would occur once we live on this earth. The geopolitics of it is going to happen. Though there is a ceasefire, you don't know what else is going to trigger and from where. Okay, so once this has happened, it should get us thinking into other alternatives and to make preparations ahead of time. If we would have to expand our reserves, if we would have to have other alternatives as to fuel and energy, we should be thinking around the clock. We shouldn't wait for another strike before we get thinking.
Absolutely. Thank you for your preliminary thoughts, Nanaya. And of course, when we come to that topic, we can expand on that further, because global shocks, they occur every time. So sovereign states always have to be prepared for what happens next. But gentlemen, permit me to go just a little bit rogue for the next sort of 10, 15 minutes. I want to pick your thoughts on something that's very important. And for the uninitiated, I'm talking about the New Patriotic Party. They're Ghana's main opposition party. Now, following its loss in the 2024 general elections, they've announced that the presidential primaries will take place on Saturday, January 31st, 2026. Now, this decision was made public by the party's General Secretary, Justin Frimpong-Kodia, after a meeting of the National Executive Committee and was subsequently ratified by the National Council. Now, Hamza, I'll come to you on this one. And you and I know that every country needs a strong opposition to keep government on its toes. I recall when you were in opposition, you brought to bear a lot of things that were happening, shall I say, on the blind side of Ghanaians. So we can only hope that that's what every opposition will bring to bear, keeping government accountable. So I'm pretty sure that you are watching quite closely, or maybe with one eye. I'm not too sure what is happening in the opposition's camp. But have you taken notice of the latest happenings? You've got several members who are throwing their hat in the ring, wanting to become flag bearers. And as with any competition, there are people who will be for and against certain candidates. What is your assessment of how the process has gone so far, or how it's evolving?
Good morning to my brother and, of course, to our cherished viewers out there. Ellen, as a political party, that is the National Democratic Congress, we are not only watching with one eye, we are actually watching with both of our eyes. Because this fourth Republican democracy, whichever way you turn it, is one birthed by the National Democratic Congress. Indeed, we led the process that even led to the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, which is an important bedrock of that democracy. So it is in our interest as a political party to ensure that we perfect the system. It is not for the beauty of songs that it is captured in our manifesto, in our anthem, that the National Democratic Congress would lead Ghana from one stable democracy to another.
Right.
We included it in our party's anthem, not just for the beauty of the words, but to demonstrate commitment to our democratic process. And so for us, we are not watching with one eye. We are watching with both eyes, and we hope that they will play their internal politics in line or in tandem with the democratic injunctions of our country, and most importantly, within the remit of the law. And so that is why we are interested. But when you look at the strange proposals that are being championed by the New Patriotic Party, and if you like, maybe the wing clearly sympathetic to that of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, I have had cause to state on other different platforms that what is happening today is not really a commitment on the part of the New Patriotic Party to transform. It is simply an agenda to ensure that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia exercise some level of control, like Nanado did when it comes to the politics of the NPP. They are intimidated and they are uncomfortable. They feel that if care is not taken, the likes of Kennedy Ajapong, Brana Chepong would make it practically impossible for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to have that leverage that Dr. Nanado, and what's the name, His Excellency Nanado Dankwa Akufo-Addo had. So this is not in the interest of the New Patriotic Party.
You say it's a strange decision, but this complies with their own party's constitutional provisions. Why are you reading?
It is a strange decision because
this
is the first time that they are seeking to do what they call a top-down approach. You simply do not start building a house by putting the roof first when you have not laid down your foundation. So one thing we would have expected for them to do, clearly, they should have gone back to the base, try to work out their way to the top. Because you are dealing with a political party that suffered largely, not just because of the performance of the last administration, and I think that I've made this point severally. It also had to do with the competence of those in charge now. And here I make reference to the National Executive Committee and the National Council. And remember that their decisions culminated to the election of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And so many people had issues with it. There were those who felt that the processes were not fair, the likes of Kennedy and his team, Boacha Jakwe and the likes, and Alan Chirmantel had to even resign from the New Patriotic Party because of the way they conducted that election. So one would have thought that maybe those decisions happened because they were in power. And so a party that is actually committed to transformation and building bridges would have gone back to the basics and seek to rebuild now outside power. because people would not have that political power, that state power, to influence elections at the constituency level. They would not have that state power to influence elections at the regional level and so the national level as well. So you give people that freedom at the constituency level to be able to elect who they want to represent them at the constituency level. Then these people together, when that transformation is done at the constituency and regional level and national level, then they then also meet to determine who becomes the flag bearer of the new patriotic party. But what we have now, under their so-called top-down, bottom approach is that you are going to have the very people who elected Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to contest the 2024 elections as flag bearer of the new patriotic party, queuing to elect him again in 2026 January. The same.
So you say that is part of the grander agenda to ensure that Dr. Bawumia is retained as flag bearer?
Absolutely, because everybody can see that his influence is...
You can't read another perspective into it. Let me throw this into the ring. So, for example, the NPP says that if we do get a flag bearer, so this is the top-bottom approach, right? That will foster some more solidarity, that will bring about some much-needed leadership. That is the maybe refreshing that the party needs. What about that angle? Is that one that you say is out of place?
That is why I'm telling you that it's a ruse. That explanation is simply a ruse. We are all political observers. We know what is happening. It is not the first time we are watching political trends. And I can tell you that whatever they are saying now is just a ruse. The real intention behind it is simply driven by an agenda to give Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia some leverage of control when it comes to the politics of the NPP. And I say that it is not even in the interest of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and also the New Patriotic Party, because I can assure you that they are failing to respond to the germane issues, actually making it difficult for the party to deliver. Not too long ago, I think a day or two ago, I heard Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia speaking about the implications of religion and ethnicity on the outcome of the last election and making a forceful argument to the effect that indeed he did not lose that election because of the fact that he's a Muslim. I don't know if you heard him.
Yeah.
You see, then again, it raises fundamental issues about his sense of judgment and leadership. Because in that same short clip, he indicated that if indeed there's any report that suggests that he lost because he's a Muslim, by now he would have abandoned that presidential ambition and supported another candidate rather. So two things. It would be an assault on our intellectual capabilities if they actually fail as a political party to sit down and evaluate the potential effect of religion on the outcome of the 2024 election. Because I always believe that this country, we more or less criminalize religion when it comes to our political evaluation or assessment. It is mostly seen as a forbidden area where we should not comment upon. But whether you like it or not, it is a political factor. We need to be interested if indeed the election, the last election, religion played a role. And if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is a foresight leader, someone who is actually interested in being a transformative leader, it should have been in his own interest by now to commission a survey, an independent one for that matter, to be able to evaluate whether indeed his religious inclination played a role. And if such findings are made, any transformative leader would ride on the back of that to make changes as to how to approach the next election.
What do you think
he's simply being dismissive.
What would such a survey tell us? What do you think we would
It is possible that the survey would tell us that, yes, clearly, the NPP support base is largely Christian. And so, indeed, they found it difficult to accept Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, that if you are a progressive leader, then you begin to engage them in a more meaningful way to be able to let them accept you. That is the essence of leadership. We've all known that. Look, in University of Ghana, before we went to University of Ghana, we were told those days that it would be difficult for a Muslim to become a SRC president. And indeed, the dynamics showed. From year one, we had an agenda and we said that, look, this is the first, at least let us set that record. Let us challenge the status quo. We presented a Muslim candidate. And fortunately, we campaigned because we knew that we were challenged. We campaigned, we reached out to many of our Christian brothers and explained to them why there was the need for University of Ghana to send that signal that indeed, irrespective of your religious affiliation, you could be given the opportunity to lead the SRC if you demonstrate your ability to do so. As a result of that collaboration, we were given one of the most, if you like, Crefe-like running mate, because even many of the Christian blocs on campus suggested a candidate to partner our Muslim SRC presidential aspirant. And interestingly, at the end of that election, they said Muslim candidate won for the first time. So that is how you challenge the status quo. That is how you engage people. So, but if you are being utterly dismissive of the fact that your religious inclination did not play a role, then clearly you are not even willing to contribute meaningfully to the progress of the new patriotic party. And for me, that is my worry. And I think that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia should be more accepting. He should be more receptive of some of these, concerns being raised, and actually seek to find out whether indeed his religious inclination and ethnicity played a role. Because that is one sure way of making an impact in the next election. And that's an advice I'll give to him as a senior brother. But I can assure you that when it comes to the issues of credibility, again, that is one aspect that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is lacking. Because indeed, he used the last 16 years of his political life to carve out for himself a very problematic perception as someone that who is not reliable, as someone whose words cannot be taken
the entire
seriously.
16-year journey?
Absolutely,
You would say that's
absolutely,
been...
absolutely, because that's what he succeeded in doing. Because he sold goodwill messages to the good people of Ghana for 8 years in opposition. And when he was given opportunity as chairman of the economic management team, we all saw and witnessed what that legacy turned out to be. The clear demonstration of unwillingness to speak the truth. Nobody needed to be told. At a point, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's words were not treated with any form of dignity because we were all fed up. So he has a lot of work to do. He has a lot of re-engineering to do as far as his own personality is concerned. But seated in this chair, I am convinced that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will win the NPP's
He's up
presidential
against some formidable
Absolutely.
candidates you've got Brian Achampon in the ring.
That is his strength, because whichever way you look at it, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is more humble, even if it is pretense. He carries himself well as far as the internal politics of the MPP is concerned, not confrontational. You can arguably say a gentleman. You can't take those attributes away from him, because I'm sure he's learned from the job in a way. You can't take that away from him. But even in doing our politics, we must be concerned about the future of this country. We are all living witnesses now to what is happening in the United States of America, and the danger that you can subject an entire nation to, depending on your choice of a presidential candidate. So we simply cannot risk, irrespective of the political parties we belong to, whether National Democratic Congress or NPP, we simply cannot risk the likes of Kennedy Agyapong getting closer to the politics of this country, or to the presidency of this country. That is something we must not gamble with. Because apart from the fact that Kennedy lacks that temperament to lead, he himself can be a rogue and instigate people to cause mayhem and destabilize our democracy. We saw it when President Mills was president. His attitude. This was a gentleman who on live TV called on accounts to go out there and assault non-accounts. Even within the internal politics of the NPP, we can see the tension he injects into the politics of the NPP. It is not hidden. So as this democracy, we are all major stakeholders. There must come a time that irrespective of our political party, we all must agree that characters like him must not be given the opportunity to get closer to our presidency. Absolutely not, because that would be an indication that we are willing to subject our democracy to whims, and the NDC will not be part of such a process. So on that basis, I think that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia stands tall. And the likes of Brian, clearly, this is another gentleman who is relatively young.
That's right.
And so, possibly in the future, could be in a position to lead the NPP. I believe that he's simply trying to register his presence as far as that contest is concerned.
You think for this time around,
he's preparing? Yes,
he's just preparing the ground.
I believe he's preparing for the future. And in any case, he himself has so much cleaning to do in terms of the issues of corruption. Remember that when President Akufo-Addo was elected president, he told us that if you are going to do business, you should not be welcomed into his government. But not long after that, we realized that even as a cabinet minister, Brana Chapon was engaged in an unhealthy acquisition of state assets under the guise of trying to partner SNIT. So these are questions that he needs to provide answers to, that at least how he can distance his business interests from state governance. These are crucial questions that we must not take lightly.
Thank you for
so
your
for
thoughts,
now, unfortunately for the New Patriotic Party, I think that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia still stands tall. And for us in the National Democratic Congress, I can assure you that irrespective of the flag bearer they produce in 2024, this is a political party that is committed to defeating the New Patriotic Party once again soundly. And we'll do everything within our power to ensure that Ghanaians give us that support to be able to defeat them soundly.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Hamza, and for your perspectives on this particular one. Anaya, let me come to you next on this issue of the impending presidential primaries. But before that, let me say a warm welcome to Dr. Josiah Koba, former principal lecturer at GIMPA, also a private legal practitioner. Doc, good to see you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
All right.
Yeah.
Nanayal, what are your thoughts? Now, Hamza describes the decision to hold the presidential primaries of the NPP January 2026 as a strange decision. But when you look through their own constitution, there's nothing that prohibits that from happening. He goes on to talk about some of the candidates who we know have thrown their hats into the ring, and whether or not what we see happening or unfolding is just pure machinations to ensure that one candidate comes up victorious.
Thank you very much, Helen, and good morning to my colleague and to lawyer and to your cherished viewers. Your question is it's more like asking a student to write a 60-page project, and it's heavy. But Helen, the very fundamental of it is that the NPP went into an election and lost in an embarrassing manner, having to have dropped from the percentage you were, as it were, to about 38 or so.
Or is it about 41? Can we settle on that?
41, okay. I mean, the time the defeat was conceded was around 38.
Indeed.
And the EC says 41, so. We never asked the NPP to come out to tell us the steps they were going to take in addressing that embarrassing defeat. But we were there when the Mike Okwe committee was formed and commissioned to investigate what had led to such a defeat. Now, if you recall, others had issues with the Mike Okwe committee. The members that formed the committee as individuals, and even their mandate, and whether or not they had what it was going to take for them to be able to come up with reasons and also to investigate. Helen, we never heard about the Mike Okwe committee again. And I remember very well when the committee was formed, I made a statement and I said that indeed the committee has been formed. They would pretend to be working, but they have a report under sleeve already to present, even without going round. Nobody has heard about the report Michael Okwe's committee presented. Even those who do matter in the NPP, those who contested internal elections.
You say they haven't been privy to the
Party
findings.
bigwigs are not privy to the findings. I'm not the one saying it. They have stated it. Boache Jakun, Kennedy, Japan, others have mentioned. Indeed, the General Secretary has also mentioned that the report has only been given to, I think, is it the NEC or so, or is it Council of Elders? I can't remember. And so
I think the NPP has NEC, the NDC has Council of Elders, so NEC it is.
NPP has NEC and
NEC?
has Council of Elders.
Okay.
And so, I left the party not too long, so I still have
It's still
the
fresh.
structure in my head.
All right.
And you see, when you have gone to investigate a matter, what I know is that you do a presentation to the people who commissioned you, and then you let them understand what you have done, and you give to them the findings. The only thing that has been in the news to have been the findings of the Michael Quay Commission has been expansion. And you all know, and you've heard, them drumming the home that they would have to expand the electoral college.
That's right.
This is not news from how they were able to scheme to hijack the party to favor Nanado in previous years.
You say there was a scheme to hijack the party in favor of former president.
I said this is not different from how they manage or they schemed to hijack the party. Not that they are yet to. They did
Okay.
to favor Nanado.
And you say we're seeing that repeat itself
And
in this instance.
of course, that is what is happening. And that is why they keep drumming home the only finding which has to do with expansion. Let us expand the electoral college. Let us expand the electoral college. Aside the expansion, what else is there? What else did they find? What were the other recommendations? Helen, the constitution of the NPP was amended and things added up to favor a particular candidate then. And a similar thing is happening now. And I keep saying that when you would have a group of individuals who are able to manipulate their way through from the top, hijack decision making, and push their own agenda consistently, then you should know that you are doomed. I'll give you an example. So we hear that they want to do a top-down approach.
That's right.
Somebody triggers the debate. Then political commentators and researchers come out to say that what a person is saying is actually going to be enforced. And it will be enforced in a manner to favor a particular candidate. They come out to quickly throw that into the gutters and say, hey, it's not true. Let's not give any meaningful interpretations to whatever they are saying. There's nothing to write home about. There's no decision of that sort. 2-3 days, they go into NEC, and that is accepted. And they will tell you that it is not a final decision because they would go to Congress on the 19th of July, and that Congress is the highest decision-making body, and they are going to either endorse or disapprove whatsoever. Then we come to tell you that the same way they managed to push that agenda at NEC, whereas we had other people who had actually fought this whole top-down approach, we had other people who had spoken against it in that meeting. Most of them who were refused to even be given audience.
You say during the NEC meeting?
But that's what we are told.
Well, we're hearing a very different story.
Okay, what did you hear?
that during the NEC party, we have some flag bearer hopefuls who were in attendance who did not raise objections. So you've got
Did you listen
Dr.
to Boache
Bawumia
Jakun? Did you listen to Boache Jakun?
What did he say?
Boache Jakun was clear. If I may use his phrase, he says what they did was absolute. It made no sense. Let me put it that way.
Was he in attendance?
I think I'd be more
No,
gentleman
clarify for me.
to say
Was he
that.
in attendance at that NEC
We would have
meeting?
to ask the General Secretary. He took the attendance sheet. But Boache Jakun was straight. He granted an interview. And Boache Jakun would not miss such a meeting for anything. We had Dr. China, who is the treasurer of the party now, also on a live interview, making the same statement, that he doesn't even understand where this whole top-down approach is coming from. Helen, you have an organization that has collapsed, let me put it that way. A system that has gone down, and you want to revive it. What we know that is done to such organizations is that, first of all, you try to see if indeed there were some issues of disunity and some petty issues that led to your defeat or the collapse. Then you try what we call the reconciliation. And if you remember, that was where they brought about the Thank You Tour. When it started going around, people started venting their anger and telling them to their face what they did wrong. When they realized it was going to go against them, immediately it came to an absolute stop. They ended it there in Kumasi. Was it in Ashanti region also?
I believe so. There were attempts, I think, Dr. Bawumia to continue. I think it was paused and he was able to go to a few more places to wrap it up.
And you think they told the entire country to say thank you to everybody? No, because it was going against them. All right. So there was nothing that we heard about the reconciliation, which should have been actually the first step.
Right.
Then after you reconcile, you come to reform. During the reforming, that is where people bring out ideas how to do things right this time, what to do, the steps to take. When you are done with that, then you restructure. But you come to tell us that you would have to elect, and I'm using their own words, a leader for the party. Is that what the Constitution says? There is a chairman, a national chairman of the party, who is the leader of the party.
You say, as per the Constitution, it's not the flag bearer. I think that might differ from what the NDC has in their Constitution. But for the NPP, the leader of the party is the chairman.
Is a chairman.
It's the national chairman.
The national chairman is the leader of the party. Our Constitution, if you look at the national organization, all right, I think the Constitution is in page 38 or so, that he's the leader of the party. But you see, someone had hijacked the party even when he was not a flag bearer. Something that Paula Foko fought. And for that reason, they mafiaed him and took him out. Because he wanted to go strictly to what the Constitution was saying. If you're a former president, if you're a former flag bearer, you are only respected to be part of the National Executive Committee. They only give you that acknowledgement. But at the end of your tenure in office, you are no longer the leader. Leadership mantle goes back to the national chairman. And it is the national chairman that leads the party.
But would you not argue, Nanayao, that because now we know that the national chairman is not feeling too well, that has opened up a vacuum, if you will.
And so the framers of the Constitution give us an opportunity to elect a first vice, a second vice, a third vice. Do we still need a flag bearer now to lead a party? No. That is an internal party coup d'etat. They just hijack the party to ensure that others who have shown interest, who can unseat their favorite candidate, the system's candidate, are frustrated and leave. But unfortunately, what they are doing is rather breaking the party more and more. And please, the media, just before I forget.
Yes, and in just 30 seconds for me, please, and I am.
This opposition guy, this matter.
In fact, this is not my main subject matter for the day, and I am.
The media is doing something that over the years they have been doing that is not so right.
What is that?
The NDC in power does not make the NPP the main opposition party or the only opposition party. And the NPP in power does not make the NDC the only opposition party.
Well,
no,
we say
not
main.
At all.
You concede. You concede, Nanaya.
I don't concede. There are other opposition parties. And it is when you have given recognition to their existence that gives them the strength. But when you have decided to blind your eyes to their existence, you continue to weaken them. And they being weak actually goes further to weaken the democracy of the country. It is time that the media gives recognition to all opposition parties. It is when you have given this recognition that strengthens them to do what they can do better. I do not think that any of the opposition parties, all right, the MPP in opposition today has performed better in opposition than any of the other opposition parties. Not at all. And I do not think when the NDC was in opposition some years back, it did better than any of the other opposition parties, including independent presidential candidates who pushed.
When you say better, in terms of what?
You might talk about numbers.
Right.
All right. If you ask the NDC today, what is their membership base? How many members do they have? They cannot tell you. If you ask the NPP, they can't also tell you. The only thing they can boast of is the 200,000 plus polling station executives that they have, and the NDC same, the branch executives they have. Some of whom I do not even think they have party cards. The rest of us are all sympathizers. You understand me? And that is why you go into the 2024 elections and you look at the numbers drop, and somebody would sit and instead of accepting that I have lost miserably, would tell you that my members didn't go to vote. Where are the members? If they were there, they would have voted. You understand me?
Right.
So let us give recognition to all of the opposition parties and take their views. In fact, and I'll push it. When Alan decided to contest for the presidential elections, he was the first to have come out with a blueprint on how to move this nation forward.
Talking about the Great Transformational
Plan. Up until today, the NPP's manifesto does not have an implementing strategy. The NDC manifesto same. They do not have an implementation strategy in the manifestos. And that has been manifestos full of promises.
That has certainly got Hamza to sit up.
That is his own.
He's got a rebuttal on.
He has no rebuttal to this.
On that.
Okay, because if you look at the trend, Alan was first to have presented to Ghanaians.
And then just in a minute for me, so I can go to Doc, please.
Alan was the first to have presented to Ghanaians how to move this nation forward, and every single strategy he had, or he did put together with his team in the Great Transformational Plan, most of them are being implemented today. Most of them are being propagated by the opposition NPP today, the NPP in opposition today, as the way forward. And so if a man who was able to put together a political organization and contested as an independent presidential candidate that they claim had no structure, was able to put together a great transformational plan that most media houses today will call forth and make references to, and you won't give recognition to him, then I don't know where we are going as. But what is happening in the NPP is an internal political coup d'etat. That is all I can say to it.
Thank you so much for that.
There is this propaganda that is going around.
What
I heard yesterday Dr. Alhaji Bawumia saying that every president has handed over to a president he contested. He's being economical with the truth. Rawlings contested went into election in 1992 with Professor Dubois. Who did Rawlings hand over to? J. Kufuor. Is J. Kufuor Professor Dubois? No. So I think that sometimes when we are going into political history and making statements, we ought to be cautious. I don't know who gave him the briefing, but the person got it wrong.
Thank you so much for that, Nanayao. Dr. Koba, what are your thoughts on this? We're just assessing so far what has happened since the NPP announced that they will be headed to their own polls to elect a flag bearer come 31st January 2026. The conversation seems to suggest that all of this is being done to ensure that a particular candidate emerges flag bearer. In response, though, the NPP, by way of its executive or its National Executive Council, say that they have the right to do what it is that they're doing, and they believe that electing a flag bearer will bring about that much needed leadership to charge forward.
Well, Helen, to begin with, I'd like to say that who becomes a flag bearer of the NPP is an important question for all of us, even those of us who do not belong to any party, or whether you are NDC or it's an important national issue. Then we need to understand that the NPP is currently dealing with a few issues, very, very important issues. They are just waking up from a tremendous loss at the polls. They need to figure out how they got there. The Michael Quay report, we don't know whether the report has been published. We know there was a committee set up. Somehow, nobody's talking about the report. We don't know whether the recent meeting and this top-down thing they're talking about is something that comes out of the report. We don't know. There seems to be, for me, what looks like a leadership crisis. It is a little weird, as a student of leadership and a teacher, someone who has taught leadership. It's a little weird for the national chairman family to write a letter to the party informing the party that the chairman is not well and the family will not allow the chairman to continue. This is a party that has in its historical bag Paul Afoko, and then at the lower levels of leadership, we are dealing with the likes of Wontumi. I think there is a leadership crisis that the NPP has to wake up to, and perhaps people of Ghana should be concerned because whoever becomes the flag bearer, for example, or whoever is chairman of the party, that's an issue that's important to all of us. There is also the fact that the party is terribly factionalized. There is a lot of factionalism in the party. You can talk about the likes of Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. You can talk about Tarzan, the Amakuba. Is that Amakuba? Yeah, Dr. Amakuba.
Yeah.
You can talk about my good friend Torino Boache Jako. There is Afoko, my good friend. So they have some work to do. And I think that for me, the recent meeting and the announcement of flag bearer, announcements about the flag bearer contest is like papering over what needs to be looked at. It's like a Band-Aid over a very infected sore.
It's like they say putting a plaster on a gunshot wound.
Yes, they need to do more than that. And I think that the party needs to understand that Ghanaians now, our democracy is improving, it's growing, and a lot of us can read into what is going on. NPP, I think, should take it easy and deal with the issues that are really confronting the party, so that they can have back what I see as that party of Odoi Sykes and the party of Haruna Sekou and Victor Usu. And if they want to have that back, I think they need to do some introspection and go back to the drawing board and bring people on board. I think this hurriedly thought of bottom down or whatever they call it,
Top to bottom,
top down process of hurriedly electing a flag bearer, I think it even flies in the face of the Constitution.
Well, they say it's a standalone exercise, really, when you think about it. So it shouldn't really interfere. And what about the argument then, Doc, that this flag bearer will take a hold of the party, will provide that much-needed leadership? Because you talk about factionalism. If there's no longer the need for competition, then you don't have the team Kennedy Japan, the Get Connected team, going up against the team Brian Champon, then also going up against team Baumia, for example. Do you not see or agree that could just carve a way then for the party to unite, rally behind one individual, and then sort out other issues?
Helen, Nana Yao mentioned the party's constitution. I think the premise of their constitution thought about this leadership issue. In the absence, when after elections, if the flag bearer, whatever happens, there is the chairman of the party who leads the party. The last time I looked at the constitution of the MPP, is that the leader of the party is the chairman.
Indeed.
When Paul Afoko attempted, to champion this constitutional truth, he was sounded out. It is strange that at this point, when they are trying to do this top-down thing, the chairman is sick. And he's so sick that the family insists that they shouldn't bother him. Please, give us a break. The MPP needs to go back to the drawing board. And some of the excuses won't work. They should listen to Boache Diakon. They should listen, go back and do a sankofa with Paul Afoko and the rest. Because some of us, I'm not a member of the party. I'm just a Ghanaian, but I vote. Right. A lot of people like me, we are looking at what is happening at the party, with the party, and we can read the tea leaves. We can tell what is happening.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Just to support.
Yes, please.
Let me quote something from. No, you'll be given. I just want to mention something to her. If you look at the party's constitution, page 44, which talks about the National Executive Committee. All right. Good.
Right.
The National Executive, number one is the National Chairperson. And it includes the past presidents. All right. And the past vice president. Then we have the president. That is if you are still in power.
Right.
Then it has the vice president. Okay. Now, if you have elected a presidential candidate, then it gives you an opportunity to include a presidential candidate and then the presidential running mate.
Okay.
Then we have the past presidential candidate and so on and so forth. So if you look at the organizational organogram of the NPP, there is nowhere that the former president or the former flag bearer, or that as a presidential candidate, leads a party. Once you go into opposition, the leadership mantle is given. Even in government, the only reason why, quote and unquote, the leadership in a way goes to the president is because he's a president. But then every single meeting or every single thing is sanctioned by the chairperson and not even the president. And when you go for executive meetings and other, it is the chairman that chairs it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Unlike my brother Solo, I can still see the passion with which you burn for the New Patriotic Party. And I'm convinced that if they extend an invitation, you'll come back home. But just to correct an impression that you sought to create in your earlier submission, that the NDC has no strategy of implementing its manifesto promises. Clearly.
I didn't say that. Don't misquote me.
So what did you say?
I said that in your manifesto, both parties, NPP and NDC, are full of promises, and there is no clear strategy. In the manifesto, I did not say that you did not have a strategy. If you had, I'm referring to your manifesto. Quote me, please. Quote me well.
Sometimes, Nana.
No, I want you to quote me well. When you are quoting me.
You can still shake off the obsession or desire to be invited by the New Patriotic Party, especially when you're on this platform, and try as much as possible to be candid in your submissions.
That is your perception. No,
that is my view. That is my opinion.
That is your view, which is wrong.
I hold strongly to it.
But let me which is wrong. No, you don't put that out there. No, Hamza, please.
I'm sure that our listeners, our viewers will
gladly let this one pass.
So you don't want to go back.
You don't make sense. So you don't want to go back.
No, but he does not make personal attributions to untruth when it comes to my person.
What is untruth?
It is that I have a desire. You know what a desire is?
Of course, I know you do. That is
you can define a desire.
You cannot have an issue with my opinion.
What's the problem? Can we draw a line under this?
Let me proceed. I'm sure that our viewers have been monitoring you for some time now. But I can assure you that, yes, I'm pretty much convinced. They know where your passion is.
Of course, I used to be in that party.
But so if there's nothing wrong for you about it,
but you see, and I am making a statement,
are you going to allow me to make my point?
When you make untruth, you will not be allowed to let you go.
When you are churning around truth, I listen to you because one fundamental principle around this table is for us to allow each other to be able to express our views.
But you don't attribute untruth to my person when I'm sitting
here. But you attribute untruth to the NDC.
Well, untruth. I'm here because of so you define it.
So first of all,
let's move on, please.
It is falsehood to say that the NDC has no strategy in this manifesto. Clearly, you have not read the manifesto of the NDC. A manifesto that has indicated that it is going to establish an Export Acceleration Development Council to ensure that we bring the country up to speed in terms of our desire to increase our exports and bring in foreign direct exchange. You say that that is not a strategy enshrined in the NDC manifesto? A manifesto that tells you about the establishment of a gold board to bring some sanity to our gold sector and ensure that we strategically position it to be able. We strategically position gold board to be able to ensure that it contributes meaningfully to our economic recovery program that is contained in our manifesto. You say you have not seen it? And a manifesto that diagnosed a problem with our agricultural sector and made references to the effect that when it comes to our poultry industry, we are what's the name? Spending in excess of about 2 million annually to import poultry exports, and for which reason we are introducing the Poultry Farm to Table initiative to be able to curtail that particular challenge. You say that that is not a strategy? So you see, if you do not read, and if you are not interested in the politics of other political parties, and you are simply only tied in a loophole, fixated on what you termed as a manifesto that you have presented on behalf of your flag bearer. These are some of the funny mistakes. These are some of the funny mistakes you make.
So please.
These are some of the funny mistakes you make. So this is a very serious platform. And it is okay to criticize the National Democratic Congress, but we must do so with some level of appreciation of what we stand for and what we actually presented in our manifesto. Because people are learning are going to learn from us. And there are those who are listening to us, watching us now, who know better than us, even when it comes to the manifestos we presented. So we must be guided. The John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, would not lead a party to present policies to the good people of this country without telling them how those policies would be achieved. That is not the kind of leader we have. And that is why we do not have that leadership paralysis doctors made references to. And just finally,
yes,
on the politics of the NPP, so that we can move to the more pertinent issues.
Indeed.
I agree with Doc completely when he indicated that the problem with the NPP today has to do with leadership. Unfortunately for the NPP, you see, at the national executive level of the New Patriotic Party, they are found wanting. They went into Congress in government and elected all kinds of people, including their current General Secretary, who clearly do not have, it has been proven that they do not have the mettle to lead. So at that level, the party level, there is a huge vacuum from the national chairman to the last man standing. Huge vacuum. Mostly when there is such a vacuum in the politics of a political party, you rely on the former flag bearer to fill in that void. That is why after 2008 presidential elections, when Nanado lost the election and there was even still a vacuum at the party level, that internal wrangling, Nanado was that towering figure where the party members revolved around. So there was no need for an early Congress, because even though everybody knew that, it was clear that even if Nanado had gone for elections the next day, Nanado would win. So people were still trying to rally around him. So there was no need for him to rush for an early Congress.
Right.
So he filled that leadership void. Today, there's a huge leadership void in the New Patriotic Party. Unfortunately, the flag bearer himself is not carved out as a leader. Here I make reference to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
I was going to say there's no flag bearer as yet. You mean
yes,
the
yes, so the past flag bearer. Thank you, Helen, for that correction. He himself does not have what it takes to be that magnet of attraction. To instill that level of confidence, that authority is not there. We are dealing with a man who is so meek and weak and is struggling to find his bearing even within the politics of the New Patriotic Party. He is canvassing for acceptance. He's not accepted even after 16 years of supporting and sacrificing for the New Patriotic Party. So he himself has an issue of acceptance around his neck. So you see, there's that leadership vacuum. And no matter what they do, I sincerely do not see how they can rise above that challenge. The only way out is for them to open up their ranks, elect a leader, and I can assure you that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia would not be that leader to fill that leadership vacuum in the politics of the NPP.
You say the NDC is not quaking in its boots?
Absolutely not. But if they bring Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia 1,000 times, the NDC will beat Dr. Mahmoud 1,000 times, but we will not be complacent. Because I always make reference to the fact that they took us for granted. Because Ghanaians voted against His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in 2016, they told the whole nation that there was no way now His Excellency President Mahama could ever become president again. Today, His Excellency President Mahama is president. We would be guided by that history.
Thank you so much.
Despite the fact that we gave him a crushing defeat, we would be too careful to make such pronouncements and say that Ghanaians would never give him the opportunity to lead. But on daily basis, we would convince the Ghanaian people by the work that we would do as a government why there wouldn't be the need for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to be brought back to the presidency.
Thank you, Hamza,
and I can assure you that.
For your thoughts on this particular one.
No, you do reference because you see, you don't. Just a minute.
All right.
So I just want him to know that I read NDC manifesto.
Okay.
If you look at page 6, NDC manifesto talks about monetary policy, exchange rate policy, and financial sector development. Nowhere in it does it even talk about gold board. Now, if you look at 1.2.2, it talks about managing the exchange rate. Gold board is not mentioned. The hard ways of investigating gold for oil and dealing with gold for oil. All right. If you come down to look at enhancing payment system and promote financial inclusion, which is 1.2.3, it does not mention it. Now, I have never been against the policies or the strategies that they are implementing.
Right.
What I am talking about, but we left an export promotion strategy before we left trade and industry. We left it there. My boss left it there. I am trying to tell you that in the manifesto, you could have a manifesto, come out later and realize that this is the way to go. Once you develop it, I don't have a problem. But I was making reference to what is in the manifestos, both the NPP, the NDC, and what we have in the Great Transformational Plan.
Nana, thank you for that, for
Simplicity.
Clarifying your position. Let me read out a few.
Even in September,
read it.
The NDC indicated.
Hamza, let's draw a line.
What it is in the manifesto.
Let's draw a line.
I've read mine.
I'm going to give you a daily graphic online. So
it's not daily graphic. It's not daily graphic. I said I have opened NDC manifesto. I said open it.
It's in there, but I'm trying to fetch it.
Gentlemen, let's table this for a different day, please. Let's read out a few of your messages, and then we'll go on to our next topic. This one from Musa Abatwa has this to say. He says the NPP's internal conflict is unlikely to end soon due to self-centered actions by key figures. And he goes on to say, for me, Honorable Patrick Boama is a candidate that I would support. All right, some more of your comments coming through. Ayape Richard says that the NPP is showing more confusion than leadership, and they're focused on media fights and silencing voices instead of truly serving Ghanaians. Now, while labor unions have valid concerns, this is not the time for protests. All right, so you've combined two of our topics this morning, and we'll get into that particular one. Obasi says, good morning. Please tell them that they must pick it as okay. This one I have to heavily redact. Let's move on to our next conversation. Then, Hamza, I'll start off with you on this particular one. In fact, this morning on this morning segment on New Day, we were asking the general populace whether or not they think that labor union pressure we're seeing in recent times is premature, given how many months this government has been in power. I'm guessing from where you sit, you would like that the labor unions, take their foot off the pedal a bit to give you some breathing space. But we know that the teachers have waded into the conversation. Some weeks past, it was the nurses. And then after that strike was done, we saw some indication that CLOGSAC also wanted to register their displeasure about different items. Now we have some 700 plus teachers. They're part of the 2022 batch of colleges of education teachers, newly trained, and they are protesting some 10 months of unpaid salaries. Yesterday, there was a meeting with the Ghana Education Service, a closed-door meeting where they hosted about 100 newly posted teachers, again from the 2022 batch of colleges of education, following a day-long picketing at the headquarters in Accra. Now, the teachers, drawn from all 16 regions, numbering 784 in total, are demanding the immediate payment of 10 months' salary arrears. Hamza, how soon can dear teachers get their hands on the money that is duly owed them? You agree governance or government is a continuum?
Helen, first of all, yes, it is true. No government will be comfortable, especially barely 6 months in office, where you wake up to daily threats of strike action, either by nurses today or that of teachers. But you see, this is a prepared government. And this is a government that indicated from day one that the kind of mess that we inherited, indeed, we expected even much more. Thankfully, the Ghanaian people are understanding because they have lived under the bad leadership of the NPP I think for 8 good years, if I am not mistaken. And so for them, it's an opportunity for them to begin to assert their right under a new administration, regardless of the economic mess that we inherited. And thankfully, the government appreciates that. And for that, in as much as it can be discomforting when it comes to the planned policies of the government, it is also encouraging in the sense that at least Ghanaians are now beginning to assert their rights, something that we yearned and campaigned for over the last 8 years. To the extent that there is that freedom for them to begin to exercise it is something that inspires the NDC to work harder to be able to meet their legitimate objectives. But you see, when it comes to the issue of teachers, I think that this particular problem, like many of the problems we inherited, My understanding is that the minister responsible for education, the Honorable Haruna Idris, of course, one of the proactive leaders or ministers you can have in this administration, he actually even brought the attention of the nation to it. Remember somewhere in January, when he indicated that about 39,000 teachers have been recruited without financial clearance. Because that, clearly, that is not a minister who is sleeping on the job. At the time we're struggling to get a handle on the economy, he was able to discover many of these discomforting commitments that was awaiting us to deal with. So it is not surprising. And I'm told he proceeded to set up a technical committee to, among other things, look into many other challenges confronting the Ghana Education Service. And it's one of the issues that that particular committee is currently dealing with. What is actually the problem with what we are reading is because of the disjointed nature of their leadership. Because earlier on, a petition had been written by a section of them, presented to government, that is the director, that was the Ghana Education Service, right, that they are working on. Only for them to wake up yesterday, another splinter group. And you can understand why even the teachers will be that disorganized, because these are newly recruited teachers.
Right.
And so that coordination, they simply cannot come under the, what we call a teacher, what's the name of the NAT? No. They simply cannot come under NAT now. So there's nobody to champion their interests now. So what they do, I think, is to organize WhatsApp platforms, mobilize each other using these platforms, and based on the availability of any of them, they move to Ghana Education Service to pick it. That is the challenge. But they simply do not have an idea that a group of them, also championing the same cause, already presented a petition to that effect, which the ministry is working on. That's one. Another challenge that many of them need to understand, our time when we're in college, we left college with our staff IDs. So even before I was posted to Yendi to start my teaching career, I went there with my staff ID. And I think this is something that the Ghana Education Service needs to work on. Today, I'm told that even after you are recruited, you would have to wait for your staff ID to be generated and given to you. So in the process of waiting, so many things can go wrong. So many things can go wrong. Per the letter I have, clearance was given to the Ministry of Education to recruit somewhere on the 10th of May 2024. The previous administration, for whatever reasons, delayed, and the clearance eventually expired on, I think, 30th December 2024, even before the new president came into office. Now, we are told that the clearance figure was about 18,500 teachers to be recruited nationwide. Per the education minister, 39,000. He had to deal with 39,000 people who claimed to have been recruited. Do you know why? Because investigations reveal, and the OSP is also investigating that arm of the allegation, that at the time the Ghana Education Service was engaged in giving out the recruitments, certain unscrupulous people also took advantage of the process and sold appointment letters to many of these young guys. So you have people who are holding appointment letters that are actually not genuine, posted, and they have started teaching, but in actual sense, they were not part of those initially recruited by the SWAL NPP government. And it is going to be difficult for you to reconcile, largely because the GES system of now assigning staff IDs. Because if at the time that they were receiving their appointment letters, the appointment letters included a generated staff ID, I'm sure that it would have been difficult, even if they had gone to controller to have their fingerprints taken. It would have been difficult for anybody to forge a staff ID and go to controller, because the system, controller would have been able to detect that anomaly.
Right.
So these are the challenges. Apart from the fact that the clearance has expired, there's also the challenge of the generation of staff IDs. Fortunately, the technical committee has not said that it is not going to work on it. They have given the assurance that they have even made budgetary allocation for it in 2025 budget. So the money is captured under 2025 budget. But because the OSP is already investigating an arm of it, they need to be careful in terms of those they clear. Because they have to actually be sure that these appointments were given by Ghana Education Service. And that is what they are working on. Okay. A number of them have been identified. So it is not as if the ministry is sleeping. You can rest assured. Those of us who have had a taste of student politics especially when given the mandate to lead student organizations, student sectors like Ministry of Education, the likes of Aaron Idusu would not go to sleep because he knows that agitations either by students or teacher trainees can be disastrous as far as his political life is concerned. So this is not a gentleman who will go to sleep on such a matter. And so he's working assiduously. So
this is definitely high up on his agenda.
Absolutely.
Because we saw how
Absolutely.
the police also came and cleared the picketing teachers and we saw teachers on the floor. There was a lot of...
That is why before the teachers spoke about it, that's why I told you that even government was already aware because the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu had made it known that this was the issue that they were dealing with as far back in January. 39,000 teachers claimed to be recruited. When in actual sense, clearance was given for about 18,500 of them. So where from that additional over 20,000, that has moved it to about 39,000 or 30,000. So these are the questions that OSP is looking into. And you heard it even before the NDC came into office, that there were certain NPP officials who were engaged in selling appointments, not just in the education sector, in many other sectors.
So this cuts across different
Absolutely.
sectors.
So there's the need for us to be careful in terms of those who clear. So I can understand their frustration. They are young people, but they need to be patient. They need to be patient. They need to be patient. You see, many of them truly have been engaged in teaching for 6, 7, 10 months now without salary. Only God knows how they are surviving. There's no way that we will not find a timely resolution to this matter. And I can assure them that when it comes to the payment of their arrears, if the issues are resolved, their arrears will be paid to them in line with the arrears payment schedule. So it is not something that they have to go and sleep at the GES headquarters or Ministry of Education for, when it is already high on the government's agenda.
Thank you so much for that, Hamza. And gentlemen, Nanaya and Doc, I just gave Hamza a little bit more time because really they've got the answers that the teachers are requiring. But Nanaya, do give us your bite on this particular one. Is that a good strategy for labor unions to rear their heads when a government is new? Government doesn't want, they want the honeymoon to continue.
If you look at the history of Ghana's politics, it has always been so. Once you take over office, you should expect some of these strikes and demonstrations and other things. And especially in the last 8 years where almost everybody was muted. And now there is that form of, that excitement when you have regained your voice to be able to speak. You would want to be properly heard. But as Hamza said, you see, personally, I was excited when some persons or some individuals were appointed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to head certain institutions. And education was one area I was excited about. Just as Hamza has said, that this is a person who has been a student leader. He has been, he was Minister for Labor himself some time back, and he has actually led some of these student unions and some of these demonstrations himself. So he understands the nitty-gritties of it, and so he will be able to manage the sector extremely well. And what is happening is, to me, we need to tackle it from the source. I think it is time that the GES, the Ghana Health Services, come together. They need to be able to develop a system where they can easily generate these staff IDs, if not from the onset or when the student has been taken, but when the student is in the final year and is going to take the final exams. Because whether or not these training colleges, all right, once you go into the final year and you are writing your final exams, you're going to await. One major problem they have always faced is the generation of the staff ID.
Right.
So why wait until the final moment when the person is being given an appointed letter? Okay. Now, I don't know if your time it was happening, but during our time when you wanted to take the SNIT loan, you would go and you would register, and then they would generate a SNIT card for you with your SNIT number. And that is what you use throughout your years. Whether you are into formal employment or not. And so anytime you are recruited by an organization, you submit that SNIT number and then they use it. In that same vein, when a student is in the final year in the training college, why don't you generate the staff ID for the person for consistency?
Right.
So that when the person is finally recruited and issued, you can easily go into the system. When you are issuing the person's appointment letter, the ID is on the appointment letter.
So similar to what Hamza said used to be the case, where you get your staff ID number quite quickly, Hamza, you said.
Yes.
You don't have to wait for
You don't
some
have
of
to
this
wait for somebody.
to happen. You think that
And
will
now
solve the
we
issues?
can easily synchronize the system we have with the SNIT and the NIA to be able to generate unique numbers for these teachers and nurses, because that has always been the fight with them. Because if you go to finance today, they, aside the auditing and everything that is going on, they will tell you that they've not been able to generate their IDs, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. That has always been the excuse. So why don't we find a solution to that particular problem that has been so consistent? And you see, sometimes we need to be a bit, we should be able to manage our expectations.
Is this going to the teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
We should be able to manage our expectations when a new administration has taken over office. You do not expect them to just get into office and then begin to solve problems because they have taken over office and they've met the problems on the table. They would have to be able to study the details of the issues. And
Absolutely.
probably they would have other alternatives.
All right.
If you did listen to the woman who addressed the teachers yesterday, she said that there was actually a technical committee.
That's right.
And she actually also encouraged them to nominate 5 persons from amongst them to join them so that they can actually judge. You get it?
All right,
so
Nana.
if you have been able to manage your expectations, you would be able to deal with yourself better.
Thank you.
I believe that, just to wrap up,
Yes.
I believe that what they did yesterday, if they actually thought through it very well, they would have gone through the procedure. In as much as you have the right to strike, to picket, to take any of the industrial actions, you should know that there are procedures to that effect.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, there are legal procedures you have to follow. We sympathize with them. We empathize.
It's not easy. 10
it's
months,
not easy, 10 months.
not having any money in your pocket.
But then you should do things right when
Absolutely.
you even want to approach your leaders for this
Nana,
reason.
thank you so much for that. Dr. Koba, I've just got about a minute for you to also give your bite on this one.
Yes. And then I'd like to take a quite different approach to
Right.
this issue. As a student of leadership, I think one of the best things I've heard from President Mahama is his plan to look at the fairness of our wage system in the public sector. I think he proposed an emolument commission of sort.
That's right.
I guess maybe a transformation of the fair wages and a review of Article 71 issues and all that. I think it's about time for us to look at the public sector wage envelope and consider a redistribution of the resources. I think the structure in its current form is unfair, it is skewed, and it leaves certain sectors like education and health, very important sectors, with wages that you cannot really take home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think that Fanti say that when you are sitting in the problem, sometimes it's good for a leader to step outside it and look at it. I think that our leaders should look broadly at the public wage system, the structure, and do something about it. I think that there might be enough resources in the envelope. But now the distribution of it with Article 71 and all the allowances, I heard about the allowances,
So that's something we've got to definitely look at
we need
on a broader
to take a
level.
look at that.
Right.
For a second.
All right.
Just
All right. Well, Hamza, I'm being counted down. I'm being counted down.
Page 78 of the NDC's manifesto.
Page 78. I'll make a note of this because I think we have to
point
revisit
16,
this
the
conversation.
NDC will set up a Ghana Gold Board to regulate the small-scale mining sector. This board will restructure the small-scale mining sector.
All right, well, I've seen that with my own eyes. Page 78.
So if you want to talk about the
let
NDC
me say
manifesto,
thank
Nana,
you to the
I beg
gentlemen
you.
in studio. Sadly, I've run out of time.
Meticulous political party leader.
Yes, Doc.
But a very diligent leader. We are not like the new patriotic party.
Hamza, bear with me, please.
I'm in Black this morning.
Yes.
We are mourning the loss of Amaduma Bateskojo, the sister of the Ahoys.
Oh, condolences.
It's a 1-week celebration
Celebration.
this morning. May she rest in peace, and we sympathize with the Ahoy family.
Absolutely.
And the Bateskojo family
Absolutely.
of 2nd D.
Sincere condolences. All right, let me say a very big thank you to the gentlemen in studio this morning for lending their voice to the issues. Hamza Suhini Saibu, private legal practitioner, also a member of the NDC's comms team. We also had Dr. Josiah Koba, former principal lecturer at GIMPA, also a private legal practitioner. And we had Nana Yao Sapon, political aide to Alan Chamansing, also sharing his views on this morning's topics. Very grateful indeed, gentlemen, for your time. But this is where we park it for the big issue. We go on a quick break. When we come back, there's more right here on New Day on TV3.